I have with me today one of the most anticipated air guns of 2017, and there's a reason that this is one of the most anticipated air guns of the year. It's not just because it looks pretty, although I'm sure that helps, but it's got a lot to do with the functionality. So, quick overview of the FX Crown. This is a pre-charged pneumatic air gun, which means it's powered by compressed air stored in the bottle. It is regulated, which means that the working pressure stays the same regardless of the cylinder pressure. It's got multiple power adjustment options. It's got a large capacity magazine. It's got side lever cocking. It's got a match grade trigger. And one of the biggest things is the new Smooth Twist X barrel system, which we're going to take a look at in depth later. This is going to be a long review because there's a lot to look at. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bit of an index in the video description below, and if you want to look at a specific section of the review, you can simply click on the time code and it'll take you where you want to go. But let's get straight down to business with the fine details. You could call the FX Crown a marriage between the FX Royale and the FX Impact. The FX Royale was very well known as a very reliable, very ergonomic, very practical rifle, and in its time it could have been called a candidate for the ultimate air gun. However, when the Impact hit the scene, it just blew everything out of the water as people suddenly realized how important the ability to fine-tune the hammer spring and the reg pressure really is, and there was no turning back. The idea behind the Crown is basically to bridge the gap between the Royale and the Impact by creating a traditional looking bottle gun with the fine-tuning capabilities of the Impact. In many ways, this is actually an upgrade from the Impact because the design is much simpler. The Impact is a very complicated gun because of its bullpup design. There are more O-rings, more seals, more parts. In comparison, the Crown is quite simple, so assembly time is shorter, there's less chance of an O-ring breaking, and the shorter valve stem means that velocities are more consistent. So if you like the features of the Impact, but you don't like the look, you may want to take a very serious look at the Crown. You can't speak about the Crown without discussing the look and feel of the gun because that's really what sets it apart from the Impact, and FX have gone out of their way to make sure that it looks and feels fantastic, starting with the beautiful Manelli stock. This is almost identical to the Royale stock, but with a few big differences. When it comes to the synthetic and walnut stocks, there's not much difference between the Royale and the Crown, but the laminate stocks are now available with more color options and more adjustability. The cheek piece is adjustable, the butt pad is adjustable, and those things make a big difference. From the very first day I laid eyes on these stocks, I knew that the Green Mountain was the one for me. Just look at this thing. It is absolutely beautiful, and it matches my GRS stock on my Savage Model 12 as well, which is a huge bonus. The 480cc carbon fiber bottle makes the gun much lighter than it looks, and it is removable, which means that you can carry spares in the field if you need extra shots. The one area where I think the Impact still outshines the Crown is in the overall length. It doesn't really make a difference in 177 and 22 caliber because they're still quite compact, but in 25 and 30 caliber with those 600mm barrels, the Crown does get quite long. So if you're choosing a gun to hunt with and you want to get one of the bigger calibers, you'll definitely want to consider this. The cocking lever is slightly improved from the Royale design. They've actually shortened the lever a little bit, which enables you to reach it with your fingers while still maintaining a grip on the pistol grip. This is more in the mold of the Impact, and I really like this. I think it's a step in the right direction. The magazine is very similar to the Impact with a large capacity, and a clever design with an angled insert allows you to still mount a scope with medium height rings without the magazine getting in the way. Again, I think this is an upgrade if you compare it to the Royale's 12-shot magazine. The trigger on my particular crown feels exactly the same as the trigger on my Impact and my Streamline. It's a fantastic trigger, it's fairly light, it's very crisp, and you know exactly when it's going to break. But FX are making the crown with a match trigger, which is much lighter, and it's something that you'll definitely want to look at if you are planning to do competition shooting like bench rest shooting or field target shooting. I'm going to be using my gun for hunting, so I went with the hunting trigger, but if you're going to be shooting competitively, go with the match trigger. Okay, this is where it starts to get very interesting and very complicated, so you want to listen carefully for this next bit. The crown has multiple power adjustment options. We've got a hammer spring adjuster wheel over here, which adjusts the pre-tension of the hammer spring. We've got a transfer port adjustment over here, which adjusts the flow of air between the valve chamber and the barrel. And we have an externally adjustable regulator at the bottom over here, with which you can adjust the working pressure of the gun. This is hugely important because it not only allows you to set the power according to the caliber and pellet you wish to shoot, but it allows you to fine-tune your barrel and pellet combination to harmonically tune your rifle and get every millimeter of precision out of it. Now, I saw this firsthand when I was actually testing the Crown and the new Smooth Twist X barrels at the FX factory a few months ago. It blew my mind to see how just a 5-bar change in pressure can dramatically reduce group size. It's something I'd never really thought of before, and to see it firsthand was quite incredible. One thing I've learned over the past few months is that you'll never know the full potential of your gun unless you have the ability to fine-tune. If you're used to shooting with centerfires, you'll know that fine-tuning your load is important. Buying an air gun that can't be fine-tuned is like shooting factory ammunition out of your centerfire. It might shoot well, but chances are it's not the best powder charge for your rifle. Fine-tuning your powder charge tweaks the velocity until you find the accuracy node for your rifle, and fine-tuning the working pressure and hammer spring tension on your air gun does exactly the same. If we look at two other bottle guns, and these are both fantastic guns by the way, the Daystate Wolverine and the FX Royale, we see two guns that are very similar to the Crown in many ways, but that don't have the power adjustment options that the Crown does. The Wolverine doesn't have any power adjustment options at all, and the Royale has one power adjustment option for the transfer port. And while these guns aren't inaccurate by any stretch of the term, we'll never know the full potential of them if we can't fine-tune their power. And that's one reason why you perhaps haven't seen these guns much on my channel recently. The Crown features a standard Foster fitting, which attaches very easily to a full adapter. There's plenty of space for your fingers, and FX have included a full cap, which is a really nice addition. Cylinder and regulator pressure can be read from two different manometers, and from what I can tell, these manometers are better quality than the ones on the Impact, so your pressure readings are probably going to be a little more accurate. This helps a lot when making small changes to the reg pressure. The Crown has a new feature that I really like. It's a telescoping shroud that can actually be adjusted. If you unscrew the shroud itself, you find a locking ring that you can actually move forward or backwards. So in a sense, you can actually find that balance between loudness and length that best suits whatever you want to do with the gun. The shroud assembly also acts as an air stripper. When air leaves the barrel, it's diverted away from the pellet skirt, reducing turbulence. This allows the barrels to actually be made with slower twist rates, increasing pellet tractability at long range and reducing spin drift. It's a very clever design. One of the best features of the Crown is that you can very quickly and easily switch between calibers. The barrels themselves can be switched out just by loosening a couple Allen screws in the front, and the corresponding probes can be swapped just by removing one Allen screw at the back. It's quite simple. Because of the power adjustment options, this means that one crown can be used in a sub 12 foot-pound field target match the one day and at 80 foot-pounds for the extreme bench rest the next day. But do keep in mind that you will need to adjust the power accordingly and re-zero the scope every time you do this. Okay, I need you to take a deep breath, exhale, and brace yourself. This is a Smooth Twist X barrel liner, and I believe that this is one of the greatest advancements in barrel making technology for any kind of barrels that the world has ever seen. It is a smooth steel tube that has been pressed from the outside, and that means a number of very important things. Firstly, they are incredibly smooth on the inside. When you are shooting soft lead projectiles, you cannot afford to have a rough barrel because they foul up so quickly and accuracy just goes down the drain. Barrels can be made by button rifling, cut rifling, hammer forging, but all of these methods result in a surface that isn't completely smooth. Match grade barrels are often polished and lapped, but this is an expensive and time-consuming process. The Smooth Twist X barrels are mirror smooth from start to finish. Secondly, these barrels are not difficult or expensive to produce, and what this means is that FX were able to do all their testing in a matter of months, whereas it may have taken another barrel manufacturer years to do the same research. And this is the result. This is 70 yards, 5-shot group, 70 yards, 5-shot group, 70 yards, 5-shot group, 45 yards, 5-shot groups. It's absolutely insane. And it does this over and over again. Airgun Depot did a video recently where they put 150 shots through the crown without a single flyer. Ted's initial testing showed some incredible results with JSP King Mark IIs. And I can tell you that they did not get special hand-picked barrels. How do I know that? Well, I was at the FX factory when that first shipment of guns to the US were being assembled and put together. I physically tested those guns myself, I tuned all those guns myself, and I know that every single barrel was exactly the same. The accuracy was the same, the dimensions of the barrels were all exactly the same to the nearest hundredth of a millimeter. So it wouldn't have mattered if those guys got the, hand-picked barrels, because the rest of them would be shooting exactly the same anyway. But I know you do actually want to see some shooting right now, so let's take this gun out and shoot some groups. All right, we're at my little local shooting range, also known as the old abandoned, really sketchy horse racing track, where I always have fear of being murdered. But I've got the guns with me, so that does help a little bit. But I've got the crown over here, and we are going to be starting off at 50 meters. So that's like 55 yards or something like that. And thank you, Tony. I've got a friend here with me who's helping me with the camera. I've got the scope cam on here, so we're going to be filming all the shots at 1,000 frames a second, so you'll really be able to see those pellets fly. This is a sheltered area, so this should give us a pretty good idea of how the gun performs without any external influences. There is a bit of a left to right wind blowing further up there through the doorways and stuff. So there might be a little bit of side to side, but it shouldn't affect it too much. So we're going to look at how the gun performs over here, and then once we've done that, we'll go out to 100. But I think you're going to see a bit of wind movement at 100, but a lot of people want to see the 100-yard shooting, so we'll do that as well. So 50 meters first, and then we'll go to 100. Let's see how it does. For this test, I filmed all 5 shots through the scope cam at 1,000 frames per second, and at this frame rate, we can learn a lot about what the pellet is doing through the air. I'm using 18.1 grain JSBs, shot at around 900 feet per second, and at 50 meters we see them just pile on top of each other. The important thing here is pellet stability. Usually at this frame rate you would see any pellet wobble very easily, but every one of these is flying dead straight. the first two right on top of each other, and as a left to right wind picks up, the last three shots land about 5 millimeters left of the first two. Okay, here's our target at 50 meters, and I'm very, very happy with that group. There is a bit of wind blowing through here and a bit of turbulence, but it only affected it a tiny bit. There's the group over there, pretty much covered by my thumb quite easily. I'm guessing that's about 3/4 of an inch or a little over half an inch. You see the first two shots went right over there. That was when the wind was blowing strongly, and then as the wind died down, those are the next three. So I'm extremely happy with that, and I think all we have to do now is to go out to 100 at the back there. The wind down here feels even worse than it does at the top there. Up there you don't feel it much because it's quite sheltered, but down here it's like up to 10-11 miles an hour, and it's from exactly 90 degrees just, so it's going to be a real struggle. So don't read too much into these results, but we'll see if we can get one or two slow-mos just to show you how the pellet's flying, and that'll give you a good idea of what this gun can do at long range in the wind. The first shot at 100 was filmed at 1000 frames per second through my Optizan spotting scope, and it's not the best footage, but the important thing is that we see the pellet flying dead straight with no wobble. I think I dialed about 3 mils for the wind, so the wind is really blowing here. Okay, well, I've taken one shot in 1000 frames a second through the high-speed camera and the Optizan spotting scope, given it some time to just process, but now we're recording, and I'm just going to take the other 4 shots through the gun, and I'm probably going to be quite quick just because the wind is inconsistent, so I want to get all the shots done in a short amount of time so that we get a consistent wind for those shots. But let's see how it turns out. I'm not expecting this to be great, but let's see. Ooh, yeah. Wind picked up there for sure. Last one. Okay. Well, that actually looked pretty good, but on that fourth overall shot, third shot in this group now, I definitely felt the wind pick up. I could have waited it out, but against my better judgment, I rushed it, pulled the trigger, and you just saw it went curl off right to the right. But let's go measure that main group. I'm gonna completely discount that third shot, but let's go measure the main group there and see how we did. Okay, I'm very happy with that. In these conditions, I did not expect the gun to shoot that well. I don't know if you can hear the wind of this phone because it does have an anti-wind filter, but you can see my hair blowing here. The wind is blowing about 10 miles per hour, and we still managed to do that. That's the shot we're going to discount. That's the shot that I knew was going to drift before I even pulled the trigger, but that's a decent group in the wind. I'm guessing that's about 1.5 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 shots in 1.5 inches. I'm happy with that. And let's take a look at some chronograph results. Now, a bit of a disclaimer. This may not look exactly the same as your gun because the power settings differ slightly between rifle to rifle. I did change the power a little bit on my gun, but it should give you a rough idea of what you can expect from the Crown. In this test, the 22 caliber Crown gave me just over 120 shots at 33 foot-pounds with around a 20 feet per second extreme spread. This graph shows the impact in the Crown shot strings next to each other. They're pretty much exactly the same, although the Crown did give 3 or 4 more extra shots per fill. And as we bring this review to a conclusion, do I have any final thoughts? Yes, I think that, and it's a big thing to say this, but I think that this is probably the best airgun that FX has ever made, if not the best airgun that anyone has ever made. But that being said, I think if we had to put the Smooth Twist X barrel that's on the Crown onto the impact, I think you'd get very, very similar results. So from there, it's just personal preference. I think that it's going to take a lot to pry the impact out of my hands once the smooth twist X barrel is on it. I've seen what the impact can do with the smooth twist X barrel, and for general hunting situations that I find myself in where a beautiful stock like this can get damaged a lot, I think the impact is probably better suited to me. So I think moving forward from here in this channel, you're probably going to see a decent balance between the crown, which will probably be my bench rest gun / target shooting gun, and the impact, which will be my primary hunting weapon. I hope to see you then on those future videos. I've got a lot planned. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.